If you have saddle issues where you are getting chafing, rubbing, or just like a bruised type feeling, this video is for you. I did another video on saddle stuff a while back and I thought it was good to have a refresh. So with this, there's a couple main factors that come into your saddle. One is how far are you reaching on the bike, just your overall fit, how high up or down, forward, back, the tilt of your saddle. All of those play a role into how you feel. I think most people know that, and that's what they start to try to mess with initially, is the tilt, forward and back, up, down. Sometimes you may also need to do two of these at once to make the adjustment that you actually need. So whenever you're going forward, you may need to go up with your saddle. So forward, you need to go up with it. Whenever you are going back with your saddle, you may need to go down with it because you're going farther away from where your feet touch the pedals. And so you need to adjust that accordingly enough as well. When it comes to the tilt of your saddle, tilting of the saddle is something that many people can almost even argue about when it comes to how they feel on it. And it's because a lot of us are built differently. We have different shapes to our pelvis. We also have different positions that we like to run on the bike. How far you are away from your hands, how far you are butt away from your feet, whether you like to pedal with cleats or whether you're on flats. All of those play a different role into the tilt fore, aft, and up, down of your saddle. When it comes to the tilt of the saddle more so, I like a flat saddle or a teeny bit of a nose down position. This is for a couple different reasons. There's also a school of thought that says if you're not grounded through your trunk, then you're going to wiggle on your saddle more. I agree with that. And this kind of grounding effect is actually how are you gaining your power? And so if you are not engaging your core to ground yourself into your saddle, and you're using kind of a pull on your arms or like a shift back and forth of your body instead of being able to maintain kind of that central locked position and grounding your sit bones into the actual saddle, then you're going to have more rubbing. What a slight tilt down of that saddle does is it makes you have to tilt your pelvis back a little bit. And so this is doing a posterior pelvic tilt. This is something that's important for understanding how to engage your lower abdominal muscles. Also your rectus abdominis, your like six-pack muscle. It gets all of those as stabilizing muscles to kind of kick in. And so if you do a little bit of that, then that initially engages how you're going to sit on your saddle. It makes you have to turn your core on just that little bit. And that little bit can really help with whether you're able to ground yourself and to maintain that stable position on the saddle, or it may tell you, I need to work on my core a little bit more. I need to learn how to stabilize against rotational forces, do counter rotation exercises where there's some external force on you and you are maintaining that still stable trunk and you're generating power with your lower body. This is something I incorporate in all of my workout programs, and something if you're not strength training, ding, 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 this is your cue to start. Even if you're just doing like a simple core workout, like my core crushers, and you are doing a 15-minute workout a couple of times a week, this can drastically change how you feel on the bike, your power output, but also it can change how you feel pain-wise. And so if you are not stable through your trunk, then you can be wishy-washy and shifty on your actual saddle. Also, the type of saddle that you choose, whether it's going to be kind of banked off on the sides or whether it's going to be flat more. Typically, if you have some issues with kind of going back and forth, you'll want a more flat saddle. And so you can actually move a little bit, but not have such drastic walls that come off on each side, like the Specialized Mimic. That's one that has a little bit of edges that I'm showing you. And then this here is the Diva that WTB makes. That's more flat across the top. And again, your pelvis anatomy may say that one works a little bit better than the other. There is some that have a little bit more sensitive undercarriage, but that doesn't mean that you have to deal with this. So that kind of comes into your bike fit and also your power generation and how you're able to stay planted on the bike, not pulling on the arms and generating your power from your core through your legs. And the other side of this is chamois. Chamois come into play. That's kind of like the padding. You're not supposed to wear underwear between your butt or your skin and the chamois. And sometimes people like to wear chamois cream. I go back and forth on this, honestly. Sometimes it can provide a buffer if you're in a really wet environment. And so it makes it where you're not going to get as much kind of rubbing because you're not having that wet chamois placed right up against your skin for that kind of wetness. It's like whenever you're in the bath for too long and your skin, like you feel like the wrinkles on your skin. Well, that's where your skin can be more easily ripped, torn, and also get sores. And so the chamois cream can definitely do that. But it also, if you are having trouble with shifting back and forth, it's providing a more frictionless layer. And so that frictionless layer makes you shift more, and it can be harder to ground yourself into the saddle or be still on the saddle. And so that's where I say I go back and forth, because depending on which issue you have, whether it's wetness or whether it's the issue of just rubbing back and forth, it may actually cause a more drastic rubbing than you may have had initially because you have that more slick layer in between. The type of chamois that you wear. Chamois can go from the tri-type chamois where they are super thin, and that's where you'll feel your seat kind of geometry a little bit more. And they can go from to more road biking style of being pretty padded and cushiony, and same for the mountain bikes. But we want to make sure that they fit you widthwise and also that they are fitting tight enough to your skin where they themselves are not going to be the things that shift back and forth and cause the rubbing and cause you to shift and kind of sit on the wrong part of the saddle. I had this one chamois that I tried out, and it was shifty front to back. And so I would sit on the saddle, and then when I'd start pedaling, I'd actually shift forward, and that's where I would stay. And that would cause me to become sore on my sit bones because I wasn't able to stay on the part of the saddle that I should stay on. I shifted with it and then I planted there and I tried to like start sitting farther back and then let it sit forward because I paid money for it. And I was like, I don't want to buy another one. I've already used this. I can't return it. I'm sure you understand the struggle within that. I feel you in my heart. And you can also go with what I personally do now, which is I go chamois free. I wear a wool underwear and that has no seams, and that tends to work the best for me. I also live in a fairly humid environment, and I don't really like chamois butter. I just don't like the way it feels. It's a personal opinion, but I go with wool underwear and I don't wear chamois, and I do several hour-long rides and I feel fine afterwards as long as I'm consistently on the bike. If it's been a little bit since I've been on the bike, then I'm like, okay, I feel it a little bit, and then it's fine. It's not a huge deal that I worry about. And then the last point is going to be the width of the saddle, and that's what most people talk about. And so this is why kind of I'm covering it last, because a lot of people know like, oh, my sit bones and my pelvis isn't the same as other people's, even if they're the same size as me. And so measuring that, you can fill a bag of like a Ziploc with some flour in it and sit on it to measure your sit bones, kind of sit on like a slightly cushy surface, maybe like a carpeted step. And then you want to sit on it like you would a bike. So leaned forward, arms on like the fake invisible handlebars, and make sure that your pelvis, your low back kind of sits in that similar type position. And then you can measure after you get up from it, the big indentions of that. I think that you add 10 millimeters to that. You might want to look that one up. That's something I don't have in my memory bank, but you add something to it to get your full, the 155, 165 measurements for the different saddles. And then lastly it's a little bit of trial and error. It would be great if you had a shop that was around that would let you trial some of the saddles, even just for short rides, like if they're close to the trailhead, which some are. Like, hey, can I pop this on, go for a quick ride and come right back? Can I ride in the parking lot and do different rides, like different obstacles up and over, see how you feel initially on it? And again, it's super hard to feel that because it may mean that that saddle would fit better if you just had a little bit of a shift forward with it, or a little bit of a shift back with it, or up or down, or a little bit more of a tilt. And so as you're trialing those saddles in the parking lot, think about that and start messing and finagling with that part. Also, I think it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways. Whenever you're measuring the flatness of your saddle, make sure your dropper post is all the way up. Don't measure it whenever your dropper post is down. It's going to give you a completely different angle. And same thing whenever you're sitting on it, raise the seat up and ride on it in the way that's supposed to be ridden, not with the seat down and just like butt on it. I hope this helps you with kind of managing your saddle issues. Also, I said last thing before, this is the last thing, I promise, is that sometimes you can have tightness issues in your pelvic floor and where you can't relax, and that is going to cause more issues whenever you're riding your bike. And so being able to understand how to relax your pelvic floor, breathe into it, engage and relax. The relaxation part is almost more important than the engagement part, because if you can't relax something, you can't actually use it. Think about, like, if I want to use my bicep, if my bicep is constantly on, I can't actually use it in any nature. I can go on farther, but if I can't relax it, then it's going to be hard to get back to the position where I could be able to use it functionally. Same thing goes for the muscles that are in your pelvic floor. You have to relax it in order to actually curl. I hope this was super helpful. If you have any other thoughts, I'd love to hear them in the comments. And if you like this type of video, hit subscribe, and I'm sure to do more. Bye, y'all.